How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Battle Tested podcast, the podcast where we are going to be talking about all things battle tested, whether that's photo, video, gear, creativity, anything.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm Ryan. That's Cameron.
Battle tested emotions.
He's talking about emotions today.
You said battle test, and I figured that's probably something that qualifies.
One of these days we'll get an intro down.
We were heavily relying on emotions the other day when we were shooting some portraits. We were like, hey, give us your emotions.
Yeah, that's a good place to jump off and start news related. We did a full shoot yesterday, just using super lights. I think it went well.
And not to like toot our own horn, but that's what I'm gonna do because that's why we're here. We did the whole shoot all day, and we went from white psych, black psych, creative stuff, whatever. And we went through a 6x, we went bounce, we went direct, all kinds of stuff. And I never was like, I wish this was a Gemini. I wish this was a Astra or some other, name brand. I tried to turn off my brain and just make sure we were testing our product. And I didn't feel like we were lacking any in the performance of the lights, which I was very excited about.
Yeah, it's funny that you said you were never like disappointed. I don't think that the thought ever even like crossed my mind of needing something else.
That we were using something else maybe.
Yeah. And maybe it was because I subconsciously and was like, yeah, we're using super lights today. But at the same time, like it always met our needs. I think the most we ever did was 2 8Bs through the 6x, right? And that's like outrageous output. Like that, it was fully sufficient.
The reason why we were doing that is because, well, a little more coverage, through the 6x if you're going direct. But we also were cranking, over cranking and a shafter shutter because I was pulling stills from video and I wanted to freeze that motion.
Jumping stills.
Jumping. Yep, exactly. But more news. I was getting all excited for NAB coming up because we didn't have it last year. And I was like, sweet, springtime, that's NAB, right? And then I was looking and guess what? Nope.
When's it going to happen?
October. So it's going to be in October in Las Vegas for 2021.
What happened in 2020? It was like September, October or something, but online only?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even remember exactly. I don't know if they could scramble and put something together, but I
thought I heard something like it was in New York and it was online only, but I really have no idea.
Yeah, if somebody knows, they can put in the comments. But there was a huge, I know everybody, and you saw the shift. Everybody went from making announcements based around NAB to their own kind of live streaming things, Aperture, other people that, we'd be interested in kind of paying attention to. And we had some serious camera upgrades last year, which was interesting too.
Huge. Yeah. Do you think that's something that's going to go forward? Do you think that's going to be a change? Because I feel like before it was always like NAB was the big launching event. Do you think people are going to start relying more on themselves than conventions?
I think it started going that way a little bit anyway. If you look, forever ago when Apple just decided to just not bother with NAB anymore, that was kind of I feel like the first step where people were going, hey, wait, maybe we don't need to, we can make a bigger splash by doing our own thing. Because Black Magic, they have been doing camera announcements with NAB, but then recently they've just been doing it as they feel like it's good for their market. And then I think Sony's been doing their own thing too a little bit, where and even Panasonic, like you get an announcement well before and you get to the show and you have more questions to ask because you've got time to research it and things like that.
And you can actually like physically touch it. And see, I don't understand like how a virtual thing would even work, but also with like the Peter McKinnons of the world and stuff, like he's a Canon sponsored shooter. So, and he reaches millions of people. Obviously, you're going to leverage that, and he's going to drop a huge video when you announce the new Canon R5 or something like that.
You're going to get tons. I know the NAB too, because it's the Broadcasters Association. There's a lot of kind of behind the scenes and hardcore business going on that we just, who are interested in the gear updates and go to the show floor, we don't see. So there's a big part of that. But as far as exposure goes, I think people are using social media and live streaming stuff. It's priceless what they're getting out of it compared to what's, been going on. Speaking of things that social media and stuff, it's been a buzz about a potential upgrade to the Black Magic, specifically pocket camera series. And I'm assuming a lot of you guys are interested in that camera or in something like that nature, because I myself, whoops, I'm hitting my mic. I myself use the pocket camera. I use a 4K camera for small stuff, sticking on like a gimbal, the 6K because it's 6K and raw and awesome. But just before that, I've been using the Ursa 4.6K. That was the camera I upgraded to after I got rid of my red. So I'm all in Black Magic, but still like to keep an eye on what's going on with a lot of other stuff. I know Ryan's a Canon shooter, which I think is an amazing camera system still.
I own a Black Magic though.
That, yeah, you do. Is it the original pocket still?
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, you can't see it. It's up there. The latch is still broken on the battery door and everything. So
I broke that latch.
I would totally lean more on you when it comes to specs and stuff like that. I mean, I use Black Magics every time I go out and shoot with you, but I haven't been as involved or invested in this is what this is what this. So when we were kind of, talking about this before, I had thought, if they're going to drop a new camera this year, I would wonder if they would go full frame. Because that's what everyone's doing. The last couple big cameras from Canon and Sony were both 8K.
Yep.
And full frame.
Yep.
And IBIS is another big one that they've been including. And I wonder if that's the next step for Black Magic. If they're going to go 8K, because they went from 6K to 12K. So do they go 8K? Do they go IBIS? What are your thoughts?
I'm trying to figure this out, because Black Magic, they're not quite as polarizing in their pro audience and their prosumer audience or DSLR audience, right? Whereas we'll see in the Sonys and the Canons, like, oh, here's our pro camera and it has all these bells and whistles, but because we don't want to mooch any business from our pro side of things, we're going to make our DSLR cameras a lot more I don't say they're not feature rich, because they're very feature rich, but somebody like me, like, one of the reasons why I stick with Black Magic is because they ever since they started implementing their Black Magic RAW, and I loved that about Red. That was like my favorite thing about Red, was shooting all the RAW stuff. I know Canon has their own versions of things like that, but the Red Code RAW and the Black Magic RAW are so simple. I just that's a non-starter for me. If I'm shooting big projects, I want to shoot on that RAW. So the big cameras on Black Magic shoot RAW, the small cameras on Black Magic shoot RAW. The feature sets are very close. Where they start drawing the line in different abilities is all the small stuff that are HDMI specific, which is very frustrating, but you can live with that. And then form factor and battery and things like that. But they still like jam time code. They still, all the camera interface is all the same. You have the same options. So it's some pretty cool stuff.
Kind of nervous to say it, but I think the 6K was Black Magic RAW 4, and I think the 12K utilizes Black Magic RAW 5. So would they do you think they'd update that color space even more with a new, or do you think 5 is going to stay where it's at right now?
I'm not sure what they're going to do with that. They've been pretty good at, taking steps along with as things progress and then updating everything back as far back as I can. Except for, I know they haven't done the furthest back they go as far as RAW and the new color spaces is the Ursa Pro. My 4.6 never got the camera, whatever version, upgrade to RAW or anything else, because they said the processor can't handle it. I don't know if that's true or not, or if they just wanted me to buy a Pro. But there was no Pro when I bought the 4.6. So I've actually kind of stopped using that because I got tired of just shooting ProRes on it.
So we're going to be giving that away.
Yeah, I actually thought about that, but the headphone jack is broken on it, so nobody wants it. It's a workaround. I throw one of my Atomos monitors on it, but it's still, I love the color. I love the way that the 4.6 looks. It looks amazing.
I love everything about Black Magics. It would definitely be a go-to, and if I was going to invest the money in it, that's what I would put the money into. The only thing that I've ever struggled with besides batteries in the first ones, the batteries sucked.
Oh, especially
the Canon batteries are better, but they're
Yeah.
still not great. So
No.
batteries and even the monitors, I feel like the screens and have always kind of sucked. They're kind of dark.
Yeah, they could do way better with that. And there were a lot of things you were giving up to get that kind of higher end feature set. Like the monitors that weren't amazing, the batteries weren't great. There was a little more tweaking with the color science in post if you really wanted to dial in a certain look or something like that.
Those would be the only things I would expect or hope for in a new release if they were going to do that. But
Let me ask, what's the wish list? Because that's, everybody loves the wish list, right? So okay, new cameras. What are we hoping for? What are we praying to the camera gods for? And there's always like the standards that people from different shooting backgrounds come in and ask for. You have your let's see, your cinema guys. They want, I'm trying to think what would be a good upgrade. Oh, like, well, I say cinema guys want full frame, but that's not true. Cinema guys like me, we're seem to be happy with APS-C or Super 35. Yeah, because that's what we're used to shooting. I mean, I'm showing my age now, but that's what we shoot, 35 millimeter film. That's what we were used to. So that's not a big deal. Full frame would be nice, but I'm not like pining for it. Honestly, my goodness. Oh, for me, okay, my personal wish is just dynamic range. That's all I want, because the Ursas had at least 1 or 2 stops more than the pockets, and going to a smaller, frames, form factor, and some of the feature set and things like that make it worth shooting on the pockets for me. But oh, I wish I had that 2 steps of extra dynamic range back on the pocket.
he's
So
greedy much.
that's what I want. I would give up 2 more Ks and get more dynamic range. I'd go back to 4K and be happy.
What dynamic range are they at right now? They're at like 15 stops, aren't they?
Yeah, so I think the Ursa is 15, 16, and the pockets are like 13, 14, if I remember correctly. But so yeah, feature set would be like, people are asking, or wish lists are asking for, like automatic focus, autofocus.
Oh yeah, that was a huge one. IBIS and autofocus were big on the Komodo.
Yeah, for sure. And people were surprised at that when the Komodo came out. It was like, hey, look what I can do. Some of the other stuff is obviously full frame. Let's see, there are some other wish list items that people were hoping for. Obviously, bigger battery, more runtime for the pockets, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about pockets. Sorry, I didn't preface that. So the 4K came out in 2018, and then immediately came out with the 6K less than a year later, I think. We were all like, yeah. Whoa, where did that come from? And then the 12K was last year with the new Ursa. And now we're all like, okay, guys, what are you going to do with the pocket?
We are so greedy. Now, like sitting down and actually talking about it, I'm just like, will we ever be satisfied?
I'm almost satisfied.
I mean, like, I'm satisfied where I'm at right now, but that's not going to stop me from, possibilities are endless. Give me more. Give me more. Be inventive.
Okay, so now this goes a little bit against our ethos, because we're all about making it work with what you have, making art and the tools getting out of the way. But it's so much fun to talk about cameras. We're just going to go and power through it. 8K is a potential for the wish list, right? For the pocket. Faster overcrank speeds instead of just 120. Because we're all looking at what the Ursa's doing and what Canon's doing and what Sony's doing. And we're like, okay, guys, what are you going to do? Because Black Magic's always been pretty competitive about keeping up with everybody else, but doing their own twist, which is kind of fun.
And if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this, I think the Sony A1 that came out like a week or 2 ago, depending on when this drops, I think it shoots 240 at 1080. So maybe we could even see that. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a stab at a prediction here, and I'm gonna tell you why I think so. So, and you want to go first? Do you want to go first, Ryan? Try, or should I do it?
I'll just quickly spit it out. It's basically everything we've talked about. My prediction would be they finally step into full frame, that they go, I think honestly they'd stick at 6K. Maybe they would go 8K, but my prediction is 6K, full frame, IBIS, autofocus, and that's kind of it. And they update it to include the Black Magic Raw 5.
Okay. That's a pretty good list there. I like it. Here's my version of what I think might be the case. So same basic form factor with the 6K, same battery, I feel like, because there's not another form factor battery they can put in there unless they go to their own thing. And then people are also asking for like a flippy screen. I think it's going to happen.
I was going to bring that up and ask you about it. I just think it's not the target demographic. Like they've been actually sponsoring a lot. Like I've seen them popping up with YouTubers more often.
Right.
But I don't think they would go vlog-ish flip screen.
I don't think so. So I think the screen's gonna be the same as it is. Definitely upgrade to RAW 5 or whatever that one is. And then I don't think it's gonna go full frame. I think they're gonna stick with what's working for them. Even though you know what? I'm pulling a blank now. Is the new Ursa, is it full frame? I don't think it is.
I did like very minor looking into it before we started, because we had mentioned we kind of wanted to talk about this. I don't think they've ever gone full frame. I think micro 4/3 and super 35 tends to be their playing house.
It's a 12K, 10 grand. Oh, price too. I think that's also, people are talking about price. Yeah, super 35. Okay. I was pretty sure that was the case.
Just because price, the last two big cameras from Canon and Sony ended up around $6,000. I'm gonna say probably $5,000, because and I'm not great with Blackmagic prices, but I feel like they've always kind of just lowballed the competition. They've always been a great affordable option.
So I'm gonna take it one more step and say that unless they come out with another category, like they have been doing a little bit with some of their products, is like, hey, here's the ATM Mini switcher, but the ATM Mini switcher Pro, and then there's a price jump there, even though the features are the same except for a couple of Pro features. So if they came out with like the Pocket 6K Pro, I'm gonna say, yeah, probably like a 5,000, something like that. But if it's gonna stay the same, just Pocket 6K, I'm gonna think they're gonna stick around like 32, 35, which would make people happy, I feel like. So no full frame for this new camera, I don't think. I think they're just going to stick with the traditional filmmaker stuff and say, hey, this is what we're used to, this is what we're all doing, unless there's some brand new sensor that they're sourcing somewhere. I'm hoping for a couple more stops of dynamic range, but it doesn't seem like to be on people's radar right now. I think they just kind of are happy with where it is and pushing it maybe a half a stop or a stop, depending on what ISO you're using, some stuff like that.
Does the 6K right now have like dual ISO?
Yeah, so 6K has dual ISO, which is also a nice feature. That's something that I've kind of grown to appreciate quite a lot. And both the 4K and the 6K do that, which is great. And the Panasonic, that first happened with Panasonic. So when I came over to the Black Magic, started doing that. I was like, hey, this is great. I love this, because it's not as magic as everyone thinks it is, but it's definitely very useful to have. So still dual ISO, even though the Ursa Pro does not have that. I think they're going to stick with that with the Pocket. Still a Canon mount. They're not going to do any kind of funny, everyone's like, oh, put a PL on it. It's not going to happen.
But here's the hot question. I know we're wrapping it up at this point, but do they go RF mount? Do they cater to the mirrorless mount? Because that's the direction Canon's going. They're slowly phasing out EF and going RF.
I don't think Blackmagic will, because they're all about universal. Like, you want to be a filmmaker, we're going to make it as simple.
Because the Komodo did.
Is as an option or just straight up?
It as an option. You can get EF or RF.
I think that's probably going to be a feature they'll put on the Ursa Pro, that eventually you can buy a mount for it if you're committed to that. But as far as the Pockets go, I think it's going to be pretty simple still.
Because we're still at the beginning stages of RF. They've got a huge selection, but it's nowhere near EF.
Along those lines, I don't think they're going to do autofocus. because there's no engine I've ever seen that they've ever worked on that is decent. And neither has Red, but I think Red was trying to make an impact when they came out with the Komodo and say, here's our version of a Pocket or a Canon something or other, because they want to be on par with that kind of stuff. I lost my headphones. I don't think that Black Magic's going to jump on that bandwagon. They're going to do what they've been doing and say, yeah, it's cinema stuff. So you just do what you do with, with the manual focus. Although I am hoping, and I think they might do in-body stabilization, because that's not that hard to do. That's hardware that's out there. They could probably implement it and figure it out. Is that all the things we talked about?
I think that's all of the things. All of the things.
Oh, sorry. I didn't talk about the 8K. And I'm hoping they're going to go 8K. I'm not surprised if they don't, but I think they'll go 8K. So Pocket, 8K, 35, Super 35, no autofocus, maybe in-body stabilization, same form factor.
Same batteries, same monitor.
Same battery, same monitor. I was going to say same price, but now I think about it, they might just leave the 6K up on the site as an option until they run out of cameras, and they might make the Pocket 8K, but have it be for another grand, so maybe $4,300. I'd buy it.
I wouldn't. I'm broke. I can't afford more gear.
Oh, you know what? People should buy super lights, and that would help out.
That would. Invest in my future. Buy a super light.
That's right. Okay, this is a longer episode, which I had fun with.
Yeah. I think people are going to enjoy it too. Everyone needs to just kind of indulge in some gear talk every now and again.
This is a discussion that has to happen, and if it doesn't happen here, it happens, on set, in the forums. People get nasty. They start typing things at each other.
Yeah, call me a Canon fanboy. Come at me. I don't care.
I'm still a Canon. Every time I look at that Canon color science, I'm always like, maybe I should go back and just buy one so I have it. And if I want to use it, I can. And then I realize that takes money, and I don't do that.
You know what? I think that's the great part of our duo, is that we've got that ability. We've got all the stuff.
So my friend Skylar, he always says, like, well, what's having stuff if you can't just go have fun with your friends with it? He's always letting us use his studio or other things like that. So thanks, Skylar. This episode is brought to you by Skylar.
Oh, freak yeah.
He's awesome gaffer and good DP. So we'll put a little tag. I don't know if he's on YouTube.
But that falls on you. That means you're going to have to finally write a description.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do that. That's going to happen.
Okay, awesome.
All right, thanks for listening today, guys. And we'll catch you next time. What was our catchphrase?
I don't know. I was just remembering that. Go make art or something. Go make something.
Something. I think somebody took that, but we'll go back. We'll look what it is, and next time we'll say it.
I could remember if you had posted last week's episode.
I know. I'm going to go post it right now. I apologize.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you next week.
See ya.